Formations and tactics can be very imposing and overwhelming at times, whether you're a seasoned player, a young coach, or someone who is brand new to the game of football. There are countless of nuances to different systems depending on how the manager wants to play. A formation for one manager will play extremely differently than one from another. As a player, it can get very confusing, and as a manager, just as confusing. Trying to merge your style of play to who you have available. I'm going to create a playlist of guides focused on how you can set your team up, looking at it from the manager's point of view. I'm going to begin with the very basics of the formation and types of players who fill the positions best in a traditional manner, then move on to a more advanced section, where I'll explain the concept of adapting your system in creative ways to get you playing an exciting brand of football that you can be proud to call your own. On top of that, I will also be recreating my personal system in EAFC 25 as a visual representation of how it will look on the pitch. These tips and explanations will also be true for any virtual manager looking for an advantage on the virtual pitch. One concept before we jump in is I want to just get out of the way. Formations as a whole are primarily used as a defensive setup. When attacking, you can always morph your side into whatever shape you need to exploit the opposition's weaknesses. I'll expand on this in the more advanced section of the video. Okay, so let's get started with the basics of the 4-4-2. One of, if not the simplest formation to coach and manage. You of course have a goalkeeper in net, 2 fullbacks, a left back and a right back, with 2 centre-backs or centre-halves. In front of them, another straight line of 4, 2 wingers or wide midfielders, a left midfielder and right midfielder, with 2 central midfielders. Up front, you have your 2 strikers. As structures go, that's as simple as it comes. Now let's have a look at the types of players you would have in each position. At an amateur level, it's a lot harder to find the types of player who perfectly fit the mould of what you want. So take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt and use your discretion with who you have at your disposal and who best fits. At the fullback position, they will be industrial players with the ability to get up and down the pitch and help in the attacking third if needed. Whether that be underlaps or overlaps, but it's important that they have the ability to defend against wingers. Fullbacks are often quick on their feet, good at defending 1v1s, and comfortable in possession. Remember, I am talking about general profiles here. In the top flight and even amateur level, you'll have players like Trent Alexander-Arnold, who isn't the best 1v1 defender. In fact, he's actually targeted as a weakness in those areas, but on the ball, he is as good as any midfielders in the world. So although he may not fit the traditional player types, he'd be just fine in this system as long as you make use of his abilities going forward. Your 2 centre-backs will be the ones who love defending the most, getting stuck in with challenges, good in 1v1 situations and good in the air. At any level, there'll be physical players who read the game well and are never too far away from the action. Your pairing of centre-backs can mix and match. A great example is Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic. Although Vidic was no slouch in a foot race, Rio was quicker and extremely good in 1v1 situations, allowing Vidic to be the more aggressive when it came to aerial duels, knowing that Rio would sweep in behind, picking up any loose balls. Again, although Rio was good in the air, Vidic claimed anything that came close to him and would throw his head in places where some people wouldn't even dare to put their feet. Centre-back partnerships are one of the hardest things to get right, but once you have one, you'll know as a manager that you can trust them to handle the defence. Depending on how quick your centre-backs are, will probably dictate how far up your defensive line will be. If you have slow centre-backs but are defending on the halfway line, you're just exposing your weaknesses to the opposition, hoping that they don't exploit it with long over-the-top passes that they'll never recover from. On the flip side, having quick centre-backs but playing deep will potentially waste any pressure you could create, with knowing any over-the-top passes will play into your strengths with their speed. Your wingers will typically be the quickest on the team, skillful and a willingness to beat their opposing player with a chance to create an opportunity for a teammate or a scoring chance for themselves. with the 4-4-2 requiring a very unison and hard-working defensive structure, they will need the ability to help on the defensive side of the ball, cutting off space, winning tackles, and working with their central midfielders to follow runners as to not allow the opposition to overload the back four. Once again, not all wingers or wide players are the same. In today's game, Vinicius Jr. is one of those wingers, always wanting to attack and create chances with blistering pace and trickery to trip up any defender. But you'll also have wingers like David Beckham, never really known for his pace, yet his ability on the ball terrified defenders, knowing if he had just 5 yards of space, he could put the ball into places that gave defenders nightmares. Knowing who you're managing is just as important as the style you want to create. Forcing a person like David Beckham to stay high and wide, to beat his man 1v1, to create chances would only hurt the potential of your team's performance and output by these individuals. Now, here is arguably the most important position on the pitch, whether it be virtual or in the real world: central midfield. A position that requires a skill set extremely hard to find and even harder to make the most out of. They must be adept enough to be defensively solid with winning the ball back, technically good enough to keep the ball in the most contested area of the pitch, and tactically good enough to understand where to go and what to do when different situations happen. They're going to be your most complete player, the driving force of your team, and in the 4-4-2, the heartbeat of your team. Being good enough to score you goals and save you goals, it's important that you understand who you put here. Players such as Valverde from Real Madrid or Patrick Vieira of old, they're really hard to find. What most teams have, just like your centre-backs, is a partnership, one player who complements the other. For example, one of your players might be extremely tenacious and wins the ball back, but isn't the most gifted on the ball, whereas his partner will be calm and composed with the ability to open up defences whilst not being the best in 1v1 situations defensively. Most importantly, they'll need to be fit. In other systems such as the 4-3-3, you won't have the luxury of another midfielder, and if one of your players is always out of position because they're not fit enough, your defensive structure will crumble, especially considering most modern formations have a midfield 3, which already outnumbers your 2. Finally, we have the 2 strikers, your natural goal scorers, the person who you want on the end of the chance your team has just created. Any profile will fit, as long as they work well together, not only on the pitch but also personality-wise. Having a good connection between each other will make it a lot easier to create chances for one another. Being able to play off each other's movements and make selfless runs to open up more space for them. Having bad chemistry up front could cause a lot of issues on the pitch, regardless if one's tall and the other's short, one who's good in the air and the other one's quicker, or one's old and one is young. Understanding each other will be the cause of their success. A perfect example of this is Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp, 2 completely different players, but both who understood each other almost telepathically. Henry once said he had a conversation with Arsene Wenger and realised Freddie Ljungberg can't pass the ball to him the same way Dennis can. He can make any movement and Bergkamp would find him with a pass. That's what it means to be on the same wavelength as your striking partner. Now that we have the basic structure and profiles complete, let's look at the strengths and weaknesses of the 4-4-2. A big strength of the formation is the simplicity, at any level from the bottom of the football pyramid right to the top. This in turn will allow you the easier implementation of whatever style of football you wish to create. The players have simple roles, easy to remember positions, and instructions when defending that are easy to grasp. Speaking of defending, it's the formation that covers the most ground if defending in a lower block. Having a compact nature with no space in between lines, it makes it one of the hardest formations to break down and get consistent scoring opportunities against. A great example of this is when Sean Dyche managed Burnley. He set his inferior side up in a low block 4-4-2, with the more traditional of player profiles. It led to his side being extremely hard to break down and leading them to the most block shots in the Premier League at the time. a distinct way to defend that got the best out of his squad. A formation with so many upsides defensively, even modern powerhouses still sometimes set their team up this way when defending. It is also a fantastic formation to use for quick counter-attacking football. Naturally, having two strikers offers you one more man up the field to aim for, but also having wingers and fullbacks attacking the same side of the field can cause overloads in those wide areas, from which crosses come into the box and can be aiming for those two goal scorers. If you're playing at lower levels and want to make sure that your system is symmetrical at all times with no stray from positions, a concept that I was taught as a child. For example, if your left back sprints past you for the overlap and you're the left winger, you yourself now become the left back until normal positions can be swapped. This always led to a very strong structure that counterattacks for the opposition should always be met with enough people back to be dealt with. Unfortunately, there is a reason most teams nowadays don't set up in the 4-4-2. It's mainly to do with the implementation of a midfield 3. With the pace of the game often being decided in the middle of the pitch, being outnumbered in this area will make it extremely difficult for your side to be on top. On top of that, if you're trying to play the 4-4-2 with high and aggressive pressure, making sure the middle of the pitch is clogged with a narrow midfield will be your best bet, using triggers for your pressing rather than a man-to-man system. Although a strength of the formation is its simplicity, you could argue that it's actually also a weakness. Not having many easy passing angles or triangles, especially in the middle, will force more of a vertical passing style. With many teams setting up with 3 midfielders, you'll have to find a creative way to beat the pressure and find holes and spaces in the opposition setup. Whilst the formation is simple, it also requires a lot of hard work and discipline. Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone is an extreme example of this. Since he's come in, his side is known for their resilience under pressure and extreme hard work. Although not a side that plays in an expansive way that will dominate the game with possession, you know from the first whistle they'll fight for every ball and not give up many chances or goals. If your side doesn't have the tactical discipline, it's actually relatively easy to play straight through any pressure, bypass your midfield and create chances. If your back 4 are too far away from the midfield 4, it will expose the defenders, and equally, if your strikers are disconnected from the midfield 4, you will never be able to create any pressure. With formation, profile of players, strengths and weaknesses all taken care of, let's now move on to the more advanced section. How you can create your style of play with the players you have available and find a way to balance it all so you can start winning on the pitch. Whether you're a coach at grassroots or a manager on the virtual pitch, trying to stamp your mark on the game we all love can be the most fun and entertaining thing to do. Coming up with unique ways to implement a certain idea and then translating that to your players is nothing short of perfect. Being a manager and coach myself for 4 years, it was something I had so much fun in doing, and looking back year after year, seeing how far my players had gone from when we first started, it's a feeling that I'll never forget. Okay, so in this portion of the video, I'm going to go through what I would do if I were a manager with the 4-4-2, using fun concepts of how I want to play and see the game personally. Also utilising the players that I have at my disposal so I can get the best out of them on the pitch. I will create 2 separate tactics using the formation just as an example to show you how you can use it in very different ways with different players. Using EAFC 25 as a tool to show a visual representation of what we can do, I asked ChatGPT to pick a side for me to manage for this demonstration. They decided that we're going to Aston Villa. And having knowledge of the Premier League and their players, it should give me the ability to make the best use out of them. Firstly, we have to decide what type of style we want to implement here. I think the first tactic we'll use will be an aggressive high pressure system that will make the most out of the wings for cutbacks and early crosses. For this, we'll set this to balanced as we don't necessarily want everyone sprinting forward, but only when we're set on the ball. Defensive line, however, will need to be high and I think we'll set this to 78. A really high presence, but with a controlled pressure rather than all-out aggression. Okay, so we're going to look how we would like our 4-4-2 to look offensively first, and then look at who we have, and we'll tweak the tactics from there. Firstly, our goalkeeper will be set to a sweeper keeper because of our high line. Having a keeper that can sweep all of the areas behind the centre-backs will be vitally important for us. I want a relatively balanced backline in roles where we're not super susceptible to long balls down the channels or game, but also not inactive when we have the ball. Knowing the Villa squad somewhat, having our better ball carrier and most dangerous crosser in Digne on the left hand side, I'm going to set him as an attacking wingback on balanced, so we have the width on the left hand side coming from him. On the right hand side, we're going to keep it on fullback and also on balanced. This moves us on to the two centre halves. We're going to be taking the previous mentioned Rio and Vidic pairing as our inspiration. One will be set as a ball playing defender and one as a stopper. As of right now, I don't know who will best fit these roles, but once we get to the personnel, then we can figure that out. Moving on to our midfield, already knowing that the width on the left hand side will come from Digne, it allows me to move a player inside the pitch to more of a number 10 position, where they can negate one of the weaknesses this formation has, which is the lack of passing options or angles. With so many modern wide players being more inverted wingers anyway, I'm sure a player in the Villa squad will fit like a glove. Depending on who we can play here will determine what role they're in, whether it's more of a creative playmaker or more of a natural goal scorer. Being as I want some control when we have the ball rather than extra runs in behind, considering we already have two strikers, I will set this position to a wide playmaker with the focus on attack for now. On the right hand side, ideally I would like to have our width come from this position. Having a natural winger would be perfect in this situation. So I'm currently going to set this instruction to winger with the focus on attack. The two central midfielders won't have a role set just yet, as I want to see who we have at our disposal to find the perfect midfield that complements both the attacking phase as well as the defensive portion of the game. The personnel are more important in this position than the instructions, in my opinion. That leads us to the two men up front. Since we have a more creative player cutting inside from the left, our left striker will be the one pushing back the line, pushing them all the way back with runs and good movement. Setting this to a poacher role will give us the types of runs we're looking for as well as the space for the left winger. The right hand side striker, knowing that Villa don't have a natural target man who would actually suit what we're setting this team up to be with quick transitions and crosses, having them set to an advance forward with the focused on complete will allow them to make both runs into the channels, hold the ball up to link the play, but also play on the last man to make those runs in behind. Now it's time to look at the personnel we have at our disposal to best fit what we want. Now unfortunately you have to take EAFC's positions and roles with a grain of salt. For example, John McGinn can only play left midfield, right midfield and attacking midfield. Yet for Aston Villa, he's pretty much played in every position, including striker and also left back. So although it's a great tool for practice, it's far and away from being perfect. Emi Martinez, although in the game isn't a natural sweeper keeper, he can 100% play as one. Also being Villa's number one goalkeeper, it's an easy selection. The left back position will be Lucas Digne, as previously mentioned, probably one of Villa's most dangerous fullbacks when it comes to the final delivery. He'll be a real asset for us in the final third. The right back position will be filled by Matty Cash, a decent option who can do both going forwards and defending relatively well. He also fits the role of fullback well, with it being his preferred role in the game. With the left hand side in Digne being far forwards, it's important that we have a quick, strong player on that side of the pitch to cover the space that he'll leave. Although Tyrone Mings is a good defender, Pau Torres in game at least is a lot quicker and also better on the ball. So Powell will start on the left-hand side as the designated ball-playing centre-half, which we were talking about earlier. Ezri Konsa on the right of the two will be the more aggressive out of the pair. He's very quick and also very physical, which allows him to play as the natural stopper in this team too. Left midfield is next on the list. Although we do have such players as Marcus Rashford, Jacob Ramsey and even John McGinn as options, a perfect player for this role is Morgan Rogers, one of the most exciting and dynamic players in the Premier League. He'll have the freedom to create for himself and also carry the ball into the final third and create for the other attackers. On the right hand side, although we don't actually have any players who are natural wingers in the game, Donyell Marlin would probably suit what we want, with quick crosses being that he's right-footed, rather than the equally quick and exciting Leon Bailey, who would probably want to cut back inside before delivering, giving us that natural width on the right-hand side. Now it's time for our two central midfielders. We have the option of a whole host of unique players, but requiring a more dominant ball-winning player who can also hold their own physically in this system. Boubacar Kamara, a defensively excellent player who also has the quality to control and dictate the pace of the game, will slot into the left of the two. And I'm going to play him as a holding midfielder with the focus on defending. In the right slot, we will need a more versatile offensive player, and that player is going to be Youri Tielemans. Extremely cultured on the ball with the ability to open up defensive and score goals, he is equally adept at defending and will be placed as a deep line playmaker with the focus on build-up, allowing more freedom going forwards. Having so many options such as John McGinn, Amadou Onana and even Ross Barkley, it could easily be a combination of any of them. Finally, our two strikers, requiring pace and the ability to beat a man with our poacher. Marcus Rashford would suit this role better than Ollie Watkins in my opinion, mainly because in the system we have designed, Watkins would be the perfect choice as the advanced forward, being able to do everything from linking play to running the channels. Having these two players up front with the pace that they have to the directness in behind that they threat, it will cause our opposition too many questions to answer. Hopefully that will be the case in the game that we play. That is the basis of what it takes to set up your very own tactic using the 4-4-2. As promised, a second style with the same system, without going into all of the same details, I wanted to create a unique possession-dominating system that made the use of a back three, to be as different from the original starting formation as possible, just to show how creative you can get. The back four had a bit of a reshuffle. Matty Cash came out and Ezri Konsa slid across to the right back position, allowing Mings to come in as the right-sided centre-back. Digne will still be an attacking wing-back on balanced. Konsa, however, changed his focus to defend, meaning he would now step across and form a back three alongside Mings and Torres. Marlin would still be a winger on attack, and Morgan Rogers would stay as a wide playmaker on attack as the first number 10. The midfield duo would stay the same with the same roles too, to keep the balance we already had in there. Up front, however, Marcus Rashford would be replaced by an extremely talented Marco Asensio. He would be in the role of a false 9, coming deep and acting as the second number 10, with Ollie Watkins this time playing the poacher role. This system and tactic more resembles that of a 3-4-2-1 formation, a formation that couldn't be further from the 4-4-2 on paper if you tried, with 3 centre-backs, 2 number 10s and only 1 striker. Everyone will see the game of football completely differently. Whether you prefer fast transitions with lots of action at both ends, or you love dominating the ball and try to suffocate your opposition in their half. From long balls to short tiki-taka and everything in between. Being a coach or manager, you have the ability to affect the game the way you see best. Formations are the basis of the game. Having knowledge of different systems is important, but so is the ability to adapt and be creative. Managers who are on top of world football always adapt and find innovative ways to shake up the modern game. From Pep Guardiola to Antonio Conte. Reimagining the game is only one step away, and you never know where it starts. Think outside the box, be creative, and have fun. I'd love to know what systems you have created in the comments down below from the 4-4-2. That is all from me today though, but what formation do you think I should look at next? Let me know your favourite system and why down in the comments. I hope this has been informative and interesting, but if not, at least I hope it was entertaining and enjoyable. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. I look forward to seeing you all out on the pitch, but until then, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.